Writing Out Loud, a program designed to explore in-depth interviews with writers to hear that words have voices. Our hostess for today's program is Teresa Miller, Executive Director for the Oklahoma Center for Poets and Writers at OSU Tulsa.
Hello everyone, I'm Teresa Miller and welcome to Writing Out Loud. You'll never guess who my special guest is today. Billionaire T. Boone Pickens, who's written a brand new book called The First Billion is the Hardest.
And it was too.
It was. Thank you so much for being here. Let me ask you, Boone, because I introduced you as a billionaire, what are some of the misconceptions people have about you and your wealth?
This came up the other day. I had a town hall meeting in Fargo, North Dakota, and somebody said, "You're rich and you go to Washington and you can get all these things done and all." And I said, "Well, let me tell you something about that." I said, 30 years ago I had money, but I wasn't rich. And I said I would go and sit and wait an hour, hour and a half to see a congressman. And then I said that as time passed and I became wealthier, I said I didn't wait as long. And now I go and I get right in just like that. And I have the same kind of conversations I did back when I waited. And I said, what I'm going to tell you is in 30 years, all I've done is gotten in quicker. I have not gotten anything done. I've gone in, I've talked. They're very respectful, but nothing happens. I never cause anything to happen. But with my Pickens plan that I'm promoting, as you know, I have PickensPlan.com is my website, and then I have PushPickensPlan.com, which is where I sign the people up, and we're all in the Army together. I now have over 350,000 people.
That's incredible.
That are signed up with me. I'll have 1 million people in 60 days. And I told this guy in Fargo, I said, you sign up with me, and you'll be in an Army where we'll have a lot more power than money does. When I go to Washington with 1 million people signed up with me, I said, we'll have a big bat. And I said, with money, all we did was get in to see somebody. So I said, we'll go with power the next time. I don't know, misconceptions on wealth, it's a tough question. I don't know.
I'm sure it is. And, well, we can imagine that you're living in a really grand lifestyle and that you don't have to worry about anything. You can buy anything that you want, and I'm sure we exaggerate it in our minds.
Well, probably, but I live in a 2-bedroom house.
See, that's something that might surprise a lot of people.
But it's 12,000 square feet.
Well put. Well put. We should also know that you're a self-made billionaire and that you graduated from OSU in 1951, degree in geology, worked for a while for Phillips Petroleum, then started Mesa Petroleum on your own. What was your vision for Mesa when you started? I don't know. I do remember this when I left Phillips in November of 1954, and I thought, I'll probably never work for anybody again. I did believe that. And I wrote down what I had to accomplish, and this was the year 1955, what I had to do that year. I was married, and I had 2 children, and my wife was pregnant. And so, and with Phillips, when I left Phillips, I was making $550 a month. So I was making $6,000 a year. And I wrote down that I had to gross $11,000 to equal the $6,000 because I now had to buy a car and I had to have an office and everything else. And I thought to have what I got at Phillips, I'd break even, I had to do $11,000 for the year. And I had this budget. It was all written out. And I remember it because I had it in my top desk drawer. And I would open it up and look at it through the year and all. And I wanted to participate, have an override in 2 deals I originated that year. So at the end of the year, I had grossed $10,000, just a little over $10,000, which was pretty close to my goal. But I had participated in 7 wells that I had overrides on. And at the end of that year, I thought, I'm better selling deals than I am, making money as a consulting geologist. And so from that point forward, but it was pretty slow going there at first, but why not? I didn't have much experience, and so people weren't
beating my door down, wanting me to do things for them as far as consulting was concerned. So it was, it was interesting. I did believe. I started the predecessor company to Mesa in 1956, September 56, and during that period, that 55, 56 period, I was consulting and selling, deals that I would develop. But then when I started the company in September 56, I really believed that at some point it was going to be a real company. But we didn't have anything. We started with $2,500 paid in capital, but I did have a $100,000 line of credit from the two guys that were backing me.
Were you involved in every aspect of the business?
I was the business.
You were it. I mean, you were out in the field the whole bit.
The whole bit. I was the lone ranger, and I've had that role numerous times. But then I hired a secretary 6 months after, and I hired a geologist and a landman. And by the end of the first year, we had 5 people working for the company.
We mentioned early on that you worked at Phillips Petroleum for a while. Were you inspired at all by any of the early legendary Oklahoma oil men?
I don't think so. I think, I don't know, I didn't have any contact with them. I knew of some of them, but I didn't have any, there wasn't anything there.
And now you've become a legendary Oklahoma oil and gas man. Time magazine did a cover on you once and referred to you as a corporate raider, and you took exception to that and saying there's a difference between shareholder value and takeovers. And I wonder if you might help us with that distinction.
Well, you go back and look at that period in the 80s, and they did, refer to somebody that tried to take over a company as hostile takeover. Is mostly in the minds of the management of the company, not in the minds of the stockholders. I never got a unkind letter from a stockholder when you made an offer for a company that was greater than. You never would offer, say the company was selling for 50, you wouldn't offer 40, you wouldn't get anything. But if you offered 60 or 70 to a stockholder, that's good. I mean, they like that kind of an offer. And in a period of about 7 or 8 years, the companies that we tried to acquire, that actually the increased value of those companies over the price when we arrived on the scene is about $13 to $15 billion in enhanced value to the shareholders, and we made about 10% of that. So we made $1.5 billion, but the shareholders made $15 billion.
See, that's the untold part of the story.
That's right.
You've been so successful that for a time you were called the Oracle of Oil. I like that, the Oracle of Oil. And then things at Mesa took a turn for the worse. And what happened?
Well, actually, at Mesa, I decided the cost of finding oil had become too expensive. And we had a very strong company at that point, and so we switched over to a limited partnership so we could distribute money to the shareholders without paying taxes at the partnership level. They would have to pay as individuals, but you didn't have taxes in the partnership. And so we did that, and we distributed to the shareholders about $1.2 billion over a period of 4 years. And I had counted on natural gas prices at least staying at $2, and they actually went below $1. And we continued those distributions by borrowing. Bad mistake.
Wow.
And that was it. When I left the company, we owed $1.2 billion. That's what we distributed to the shareholders, and it took about $300 million to recapitalize the company, and that was done rather easily, and the company went on from there without me.
In your book, you speak very frankly about the fact that you've had to deal with clinical depression. What made you decide to come forward and talk about that?
I never have hesitated to talk about anything, and I never think anybody can ask me a question I won't answer if I know the answer. Sometimes if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know, of course. But I don't know. I I had people write me about that. It was in Fortune magazine, and I had people write me and say it helped them. I even had, I think it was 2 people call me about it, and I talked to them about it and told them kind of what my experience was. And I didn't hear from the one of them, but the other one I heard from several times after that and said that I'd helped and he was progressing, things were going better and all. And it's, I didn't realize it, but as the fortunes of Mesa went downhill in the 90s, and also I was not happy in my marriage, and that went downhill too in the 90s. I just ratcheted down. After I went back and reconstructed, I didn't realize it was happening at the time. But after I was diagnosed with the depression and realized my problem, and it all made sense to me.
Sure.
I thought, now when did this start? And so I started backtracking, and I could get it back, I think, pretty close to the time that I started down. And I think I think it was at the bottom when my lawyer told me, he said, you need help. And so I think it'd gone on for 6 years.
What are some of the most important things you've learned from your personal and professional comebacks?
Well, I can't say that my confidence was 100% continually, because there are certain things that happen that, shake your confidence to some degree. But if you're going to make a comeback like I did and everything, you can't dwell on, the deal that didn't make. You concentrate on the deal that's going to make. So I tried to. It wasn't a conscious trying to stay, on the upbeat all the time, but it's my nature to. I don't think about, something that didn't work very long after it failed. I do reflect back on things so that I don't do that again. I call it that. And I've told people this, I said, I'll tell you one thing I learned pretty quick. If I know the doors where I got my fingers mashed, and I don't put my fingers in that same door again. And so and then, when I was coming out of it and everything was starting to look good, a guy that's a friend of mine there in Dallas, he went to lunch. He said, how's the business going? I said, it's going pretty good. I said, and he said, you got the divorce is over with? And I said, yep. I said, everything. He said, how do you feel? And I said, well, I feel like I had all 5 fingers in the door. And I said, I've got 4 of them out now. And I said, I'm going to get the other one out pretty soon. And he said, my God, I can't even imagine describing it that way. He said, but I did kind of see it, in that sort of way.
But talk about rebounding. You were down to your last $3 million. It's a bad spot to be. And now suddenly, within a 3-year time span that you became a billionaire.
I wasn't down. The fund was down to that. The fund was down to $3 million it was $3,400,000 in the summer of 1998. And in 99, that fund made $900,000. So when we started the year 2000, the beginning balance was $1,300,000, and at the end of that year, we were up $255 million.
It's an incredible. How do you explain a turnaround like that? Is it hard work, good instinct, a little bit of luck?
All of it.
All of it?
Yeah, to get a comeback like that, you got to have every ball bounce in the hole and knock everything out of the park. And it got so you had so much confidence in how you were calling the market and everything that you felt like you'd never make a mistake again. Wrong, but you get the feeling that way.
As a businessman, are you superstitious at all?
No, I'm not superstitious, but I kind of kick myself when I've seen something, and even though seeing it, I either forgot it or didn't believe what I saw, and then make a mistake that if I had remembered what I'd seen, I would have never done what I was doing. You see what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And that's not superstitious. I'm not that. Putting a hat on a bed doesn't bother me. It used to bother my mother, but not me. And but I'm not superstitious. I'm pretty. I'm kind of a simple sort of a guy. I don't like complicated things. I always say that when I walk up to a pool table after the break, I never see anything but a straight in. I don't see any combinations. I'm not going to hit a ball that kisses another ball to another ball and knocks a ball in. I got to see a straight in wherever I'm going. I'm kind of like that, in life. I like to see A to B. I don't want to go to someplace else to get to B. So it's yeah. And one time when I was on the Texas Commerce Bank Shares Board, I was walking out of a meeting, and it was not a very good meeting for the board that day because the board was split on some things. And I got up and told it like I thought it was. And I didn't take long. I won't ever take long in those kind of situations. I figure 3 minutes is the max. And I got it out pretty quick. And the chairman and I did not agree on the point. And just walked out. He was about 6'5", and he put his arm around my shoulder. And he said, "Well," he said, "little guy," he said, you don't have much gray in your life." And I said, "No, Ben," I said, "I don't." I said, I see it's either black or white. And I said, "Gray in your life," I said, "I think you'd be a candidate for a heart attack or an ulcer." And I said, "Neither one of those are going to get me. It'll be something else."
Not only is your book about reflections on your life of comebacks, but it's also reflections about America's energy future. And we spoke about that just a moment at the top of the interview. And wonder if you could elaborate that a little bit more on that, about what you see as America's energy future.
Well, Teresa, first the problem, and that is that we have drifted for 40 years with no energy plan for America. And what's happened during the 40 years, in 1970 we were importing 24% of our oil. When we had the Gulf War in 1991, we were importing 42%, and now we're up to almost 70%. At the same time, of course, that's costing a lot of money, and it's about $700 billion a year. And so when, everybody's concerned about health care, education, Social Security, and all, if we don't solve the energy problem and the outflow of $700 billion, that's 4.5 times greater than the cost of the Iraqi war. Okay, it's huge. It's almost like I don't want to hear it. It's too much. And the $700 billion, we have to do something about it, and we have a way to do it. The solution for that, see, that's almost 70% of the oil we use every day in America, and 70%, we've got a security problem. Absolutely. With that. I mean, it's questionable whether the security problem is greater than the economic problem, but both security and economic are the issue. And here we have one resource in America that can replace foreign oil. Just one. It's not nuclear. That's fine. I'm nuclear. We have oil, but we only produce 5 million barrels of oil a day, and we use 21 million. Okay, we're using now 25% of all the oil produced in the world every day. 85 million is the production for the world. We're using 21 million, and we have only 4% of the population. So there's something wrong here. Out of 1,000 people in America, we have 750 cars. Out of 1,000 people in China, there are 44 cars. Out of the average of the world, 1,000 people is 120 cars. So it's the transportation that's costing us, and that's why we use so much oil. But the reason nothing had been done for 40 years is because cheap oil. We had cheap oil, and we didn't do anything. We just went ahead. It was almost like send us the oil, never mind the price. And then one day we had $4 gasoline.
In many ways, then, this $4 a gallon gas was a reality check for us.
It was, but I think people had started to become concerned. After it got to over $3 a gallon, you could see some drop off in demand. But the demand was still very high. And at $4, well, you then, we now have, we're using daily in America over 1 million barrels of the 21 million we've dropped off. We're 21 million, now we're 20 million. That's happened in 1 year, and that's because of the price. And of course, what will kill demand his price, higher it gets. Now, I don't think the world will ever produce any more than 85 million barrels of oil. I think that's it. I think you've maxed out, and that's it. Now, the projections for next year is 87.9 million barrels a day demand. If that's the case, the price of oil has to go up again. I had the feeling the demand will not be 87.9, it will be closer to 86.9. But nonetheless, the solution to the problem is I wanted first to go to wind because we have this huge wind corridor that extends from Texas to Canada. And it's fabulous wind. I mean, it's been measured. We know what it'll do. It's about 35 to 40% of the time the wind blows. Somebody said, oh, my gosh, well, what happens to your lights if you're hooked up to the wind and 60% of the time your lights are off? Well, it doesn't quite work that way because you'll peak on the power, and you'll probably peak with natural gas. That's what you'll do. But I want, over time, some of that natural gas moved out of power generation and go into transportation fuel. Now we're talking about compressed natural gas or liquefied natural gas. It's proven technology, everything. Anything that I say is technology in existence. I'm not, if you ask me and I said, oh, wait a minute, it's going to take me a couple of years to get the R&D on this, and I'll get you a good answer in a couple of years. No, I've got the technology. It's already in place. So there are 8 million vehicles in the world today that are on natural gas. 8 million. We only have 142,000 of them. And here we are with an abundant supply of natural gas. We have over 100-year supply of natural gas. And what I'm proposing will be nothing more than a bridge. It's a bridge from today to the next generation of transportation fuel, whether it be electric or hydrogen or whatever. But the natural gas is the only thing that can back out foreign oil. We don't have any other resource that can do that. Now somebody says, well, we can have a plug-in electric. That's exactly right. Have it. I want you to have it. Anything American, I want it. But a plug-in hybrid can never get into the numbers that I had a nice visit with Senator Obama, and it went for over an hour on the subject. And as we talked, I said, you know, Senator, I said, you make a statement that makes me think that you don't see the magnitude of the problem. And he said, what is it? And I said, you say that in 10 years you're going to have 1 million plug-in hybrids operating in the United States. He said, I'm going to do that, yes. And I said, well, if we looked out this window on that parking lot, I said, and there were 1 million cars there, it would look like one hell of a lot of cars. And he said, it would be a lot of cars. I said, but Senator, we have 250 million vehicles in America. 1 million vehicles is nothing if you're going to try to reduce the dependency on foreign oil. Don't throw the 1 million vehicles away. Let's keep them, use them as plug-in hybrids. But we have to attack the 700 billion number. And he said, well, how do you expect to do that? And I said, with natural gas. I said, it's cleaner, it's cheaper, it's abundant, and it's ours. And that's the way we do it. And you can reduce, and the way you do it is that 30% of all the transportation fuel used in the day today will be used for movement of goods, trucks. We just get the trucks over to natural gas, and you've solved the problem. It starts with the president saying that all federal vehicles used to replace automobiles in their fleet will be natural gas. That'll send a signal to Detroit, this is all going to happen. That's only 200,000 vehicles a year. But then you say, we are switching all the trucks over to natural gas. And it will be done as they replace trucks. You won't have to take diesel out of your fleet until you've run it out to where you're ready to get a new truck. And that's the way you add it in. In 10 years' time, I think we could cut our dependency by 35 to 50%.
Are you optimistic that we will do that?
Oh, you have to do it. Yes, I am optimistic. I think the Pickens plan, most of it, will be accepted by the incoming Congress.
You told me just a minute ago that you're not endorsing either candidate for president. Is
No.
that right? Because you're so committed to keeping this Pickens plan apolitical. Is that?
That's it. That's exactly it. And the other day somebody said, well, but you'll vote for somebody. I said, look, if I'm going to be the Lone Ranger, I will be the Lone Ranger. And that's it. I said, I cannot take sides either way.
We don't have a lot of time left here, but I want you to talk briefly about water marketing.
Water marketing has been very slow. I haven't sold any water. I've tried to, and eventually I will. I have the only permitted water in the state of Texas, and I'm probably the largest owner of groundwater in the United States. And but I have not sold it. It'll be sold probably to Dallas and Tarrant County Regional Water Supply and in North Texas Municipal Water Supply. It'll be 3 or 4 that will buy the water at some point, and then I'll transport it to them.
We have under a minute left, and you've been such a good steward of your own resources. It's given you the opportunity to be very generous with OSU and many other worthwhile institutions. And what's it like for you being able to share in that way?
Well, Teresa, I have, in the last 5 years, it's fabulous to be able to do that. I enjoy it very much. I've given over $700 million away in 5 years, and I look forward to the day that I can say I did $1 billion. But at the same time, I'm not having a good year this year, so there's not going to be a lot going out this year. But I have left my entire estate to charity. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, and I've taken care of my family in other ways, and so it's going to be a pretty simple estate. There won't be any taxes.
I have a feeling it's going to be an even bigger year. With the first $1 billion, it's the hardest because I think it's going to be a major bestseller. Thanks for being here, Boone.
Thank you. Enjoyed it very much.
And thank all of you for joining us on Writing Out Loud.